From the broadcast center at BCIT's Burnaby Campus, this is All Talk Radio. You're listening to 1680 The Crow.
Good afternoon, I'm Brooke Jensen with your 1:30 news headlines. Environment Canada has issued a rainfall warning across BC, with, quote, a fire hose-like band pointing subtropic moisture at the coast. More than 200 millimeters of rain could hit western Vancouver Island, up to 110 millimeters in the Sea to Sky region, and about 80 millimeters in Metro Vancouver. Erosion from the wildfire season can lead to a risk of flooding and landslides due to all the sudden rainfall. Water pools are forming on already slippery roads, so be extra cautious while driving. As well as several ferries were canceled this morning, and trips for the rest of the day are at risk for any cancellation. Those living in the floodplains, such as Merritt, Princeton, and Sumas, are being told to prepare for the seasonal storms. With more people looking to go electric, there are questions about how older buildings without charging stations are dealing with the demand. The Crow's Nicholas Poitras has details on how BC's landlords will deal with the pressure.
The demand of EV charging stations has slowly been brewing in the Lower Mainland as more and more people turn to electric cars. Despite stats from BC Hydro saying that 1 in 6 people already own electric cars, many landlords in BC aren't too worried about the rise in popularity. The demand of electric cars can switch quite quickly, including costs, as the new technology isn't always affordable, as well as concerns for infrastructure, since many buildings have yet to add charging stations. However, with some rebates already ending due to the ever-increasing growth of the electric car market, these landlords might not have a choice in the coming years. Nicholas Poitras, 1680 The Crow.
The BC government is committing $7.5 million to help stabilize physician care in emergency rooms in the province's interior. This comes after several emergency rooms in Merritt, Oliver, and Salmon Arm have seen shortened hours and unexpected service interruptions due to staffing shortages. The province says in a statement the development of a new compensation model will help recruit more physicians in rural communities, as they will compensate them for their time spent at the hospital caring for patients with complex and time-intense needs. Health Minister Adrian Dix says the investment will help ensure patients have stable access to emergency care, but more work needs to be done to avoid further service interruptions. Wab Kinew is officially the new Premier of Manitoba. Kinew is the first ever Indigenous Premier. Kinew took his oath in a colorful ceremony filled with ceremonial drumming and dancing, as well as prayers from Indigenous leaders. Kinew also named his cabinet ministers, made up of a variety of people from different backgrounds. This cabinet also included 2 Indigenous women, the first cabinet to do so. One of the people present was former chairman of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, Marie Sinclair, who said the election of a First Nations Premier is a true act of reconciliation.
I want you to think of the fact that we are now entering a new phase. And that phase ultimately is going to lead to a relationship between Indigenous and non-Indigenous people in which we are able to show true respect to all of those who are here and all of those who come here.
After 18 years, the case of Natalie Holloway has been solved. Natalie went missing on a graduation trip to Aruba in 2005. The chief suspect in her case, Jeroen van der Sloot, has confessed to killing her that night for rejecting his advances. The admission came with a part of a plea deal for extortion charges in which she pleaded guilty. Beth Holloway, Natalie's mother, says it's relieving in a way to finally know what happened to her daughter.
Today, I can tell you with certainty that after 18 years, Natalie's case is solved.
Going back to the weather for a quick moment, the high today is expected to be around 14 and a low of 12 degrees, not including any wind. And rainfall is currently 31 millimeters in Metro Vancouver. And that was your news headlines for 1:30. I'm Brooke Jensen, and you are listening to 1680 The Crow.
Stay tuned for more on BCIT's 1680 The Crow.
everything is changing to digital. Everything is online. People aren't just waiting for the 6 o'clock news anymore. People want their news right now. They want to be able to go onto their smartphone, onto the internet, and see the news that they want to see.
Vancouver is growing at, a really rapid rate, the Lower Mainland even, and with the tools that we're given here, we're able to cover all of that.
Welcome to BCIT Magazine. I'm Radhika Sikki-King.
In the program, they really leave it up to you. I mean, the help is there when you need it, figuring out how to use the programs like Premiere, Audition, and figuring out how to use the cameras. But it's up to you to sort of experiment and figure out what you can do when you go out in the field.
They brought candles and flowers to remember the student who lost her life yesterday.
Theresa May says the international community condemns Moscow.
They really make sure that you know the basics and you are able to put out a quality product.
I'm Brady Tretanero.
And I'm Radhika Sikki-King. Thank you for tuning in to BCIT Magazine.
Hey there and welcome to For the Record. I'm your host Madison Buckingham and today's guest is the Dusty Flower Pot Cabaret's artistic director, Kat Singledane. The Dusty Flower Pot Cabaret is in the process of preparing for the Parade of the Lost Souls. The event has been a Vancouver tradition for roughly 30 years now. This year, the group is encouraging more guest interaction than ever with their theme of Everything Everywhere All at Parade. The parade will be choose your own adventure style, meaning several bands will begin at the Britannia Library before splitting up into separate routes with different experiences for attendees to follow. Between costume creation meetups and flash mob workshops, the cabaret group is working hard to build up anticipation in the city throughout the month of October. Today I have the pleasure of speaking with Kat Singledane about how this event contributes to the vastly colorful and interesting culture of Vancouver, and how the parade helps to grow the cabaret community. Welcome, Kat. How would you describe cabaret?
We're called a cabaret mostly because we do a variety of types of acts. We use different genres. We're often mixing genres together. And we're also based in a very kind of 1930s and 40s era performance style.
What unique aspects does the Halloween theme bring to a cabaret?
So it is around Halloween time, which means that I call it an audience, but it doesn't sound right to me. The people who come out to parade, I want to say, because we don't call them audience. Internally, we think of them as everybody is the parade. So everybody who comes is a character, is dressed up. Around Halloween, everybody feels permission to dress up. And so that makes it really unique, and that's why we love the Halloween time. Because in all our shows, we're always encouraging audiences to be part of the show. We always do interactive musicals, meaning that the people who come in are greeted as if they are meant to be there in the theme. So, for example, the last one being Disco Inferno, where they entered a 1970s discotheque, and they have to get involved in saving the discotheque. A show before that was Part-Time Hit Parade, where everybody who enters can join in a dance marathon in 1933 if they want, or they can watch. Stuff like that. So that makes it unique, and then also the Halloween time is not only for dressing up and going trick-or-treating, but around the world, the tradition around this time is to celebrate life and death. And so that's also unique to this time and to the Parade of Lost Souls as well. There's an aspect of that.
And then, from that, I know you spoke a little bit about how the audience becomes part of the spectacle. How does hosting events like this open up opportunities for future collaborations and growth of the cabaret community?
So in so many ways. There's a lot of action that happens leading up to the parade that doesn't get seen by most people, but what it is basically throughout October, the studio, our home base, which is the Dusty Flower Pot Cabaret as a venue, becomes a hub of artists who are going to be part of parade, volunteers who want to get involved and haven't been in the past, the crew, and it's like a rotating glass door, basically, of people coming in and out and meeting each other. There's also the general public come in, too, and we have an open house every Friday, which also is coming up this Friday as well, 4 to 7 p.m. So the open house is meant for people to come if they just want to buy costumes. We have a big costume collection, and most of it's for sale. They might want to come just to enjoy the studio because we open up karaoke for the night and people can get on the mic. They might want to come and volunteer. They could come and just say, hey, I want to lend a hand for a couple hours. What do you got? And that's great. So people meet each other in so many different ways at Parade, and it forms, I think, a lot of collaborations for future.
Absolutely. So you spoke a bit about the choose your own adventure aspect. You said that there was bands that would be walking through and the parade would just split off essentially. Do these have different themes? Like, what is the story being told through these performances?
So yes, the parade the Parade of Lost Souls is like we call it a reverse parade almost, because while we do have parades that go through the whole space, the actual event site is decked out with about 10 installations of that are both like set deck installations and musicians. So that means that whether you join a parade or not at 7:30 and 8:30, and the Little Souls being 6:30, so that's meant for kids, you can walk through the site and enjoy all of these installations and flash mob dances and stuff like that. So it's kind of like the parade goes through, and there's another parade on the outside of the parade, if that makes sense, where you can stop and enjoy a whole bunch of different bands. There's probably, I want to say 15 bands this year, and there's 3 different DJ collectives as well that are producing installations. There's a fire show. There's 2 flash mobs. Nope, there's 3 flash mobs. There's the Witches of East Band. We've got Alex Wells, hoop dancer. I mean, there's so much going on everywhere you look, which is everything, everywhere, all at parade.
So where do you pull inspiration for these events?
From the seed of the event itself, back in the early 90s, late 80s. I've had interviews with Paula Jardine, who started the event, as well as other people. So this has always been a group effort. And while she ran the event at the very beginning, it's always been it happens because of the power of all these people in community together. That's the way it can work, because it's a very low budget event. So I've had interviews with her about why she started it, what it was like in the beginning, and my goal is to keep the initial seeds of the parade alive, and not to try to make it something that it's not. Every year it's different because different people get involved, and so you don't have to change the seed of inspiration for it to be different and interesting and inspiring every year. And so to me, that's the involvement of the community. That's the seed, because that brings people together, makes you feel like you belong, and makes you feel like you appreciate your home, Vancouver, that we're unique, that it was created by Vancouver residents.
I just have one last question for you, Kat. Why is it so important to combine performance and attendee participation for your organization?
I think because anyone who's a professional performer has gone through the stage of not knowing how to perform on a stage and hold people's attention, but wanting to, and having a very clear desire to perform. And how do you leap from that desire without the experience onto the stage, right? And that's something that I clearly remember for myself, climbing that ladder through trying out performing in these kind of settings where you are doing a roving character, you're roaming around, you're in character, you're interacting with people in short spurts, as you like, and taking breaks when you need to, stuff like that. Like, you need to gain experience through experience. And so I personally really enjoy putting on productions where you have all levels of performer, from people who are not performers to people who are interested and are stepping their toe in, to people who are almost professional, doing it regularly, and then to professional people who can also mentor or just be an inspiration for other people as well.
That's all the time we have today. Thank you so much for joining us, Kat. I'm your host, Madison Buckingham, and you're listening to For the Record on 1680 The Crow. We'll see you next time.
everything is changing to digital. Everything is online. People aren't just waiting for the 6 o'clock news anymore. People want their news right now. They want to be able to go onto their smartphone, onto the internet, and see the news that they want to see.
Vancouver is growing at, a really rapid rate, the Lower Mainland even, and with the tools that we're given here, we're able to cover all of that.
Welcome to BCIT Magazine. I'm Radhika Sikakane.
In the program, they really leave it up to you. I mean, the help is there when you need it, figuring out how to use the programs like Premiere, Audition, and figuring out how to use the cameras. But it's up to you to sort of experiment and figure out what you can do when you go out in the field.
They brought candles and flowers to remember the student who lost her life yesterday.
Theresa May says the international community condemns Moscow.
They really make sure that you know the basics and you are able to put out a quality product.
I'm Brady Tretnero.
And I'm Radhika Sikakane. Thank you for tuning in to BCIT Magazine.
Everything is changing to digital. Everything is online. People aren't just waiting for the 6 o'clock news anymore. People want their news right now. They want to be able to go onto their smartphone, onto the internet, and see the news that they want to see.
Vancouver is growing at, a really rapid rate, the Lower Mainland even, and with the tools that we're given here, we're able to cover all of that.
Welcome to BCIT Magazine. I'm Radhika Sikki-King.
In the program, they really leave it up to you. I mean, the help is there when you need it, figuring out how to use the programs like Premiere, Audition, and figuring out how to use the cameras. But it's up to you to sort of experiment and figure out what you can do when you go out in the field.
They brought candles and flowers to remember the student who lost her life yesterday.
Theresa May says the international community condemns Moscow.
They really make sure that you know the basics and you are able to put out a quality product.
I'm Brady Tretanero.
And I'm Radhika Sikki-King. Thank you for tuning in to BCIT Magazine.
From the Broadcast Center at BCIT's Burnaby Campus, this is All Talk Radio. You're listening to 1680 The Crow.
Good afternoon, I'm Anthony Atanisov with 1680 The Crow. It's 2 o'clock. Here's what's making news. Environment Canada issued warnings for Metro Vancouver earlier this morning, and they're still in place. North Shore, Sea to Sky Highway, Sunshine Coast, Kitimat, across Vancouver Island, the province prepares for an atmospheric river. The Lower Mainland is expected to see about 80 millimeters of rain. Whistler should have upwards of 110 millimeters of rain, while West Vancouver Island is still looking between 180 and 200 millimeters of rain. Officials are warning people in affected areas to be ready in case of landslides and flooding. They speculate that the weather will prolong into the evening. On another unrelated topic, BC Ferries does have several cancellations, but this is not due to the weather. It is due to crew shortages. And as a result, there are multiple sailings between Schwartz Bay and Tsawwassen, with 2 more that are at risk. News coming out of Pitt Meadows. A child has died after a crash involved this morning. The accident involved a recycling truck which struck a 12-year-old cyclist that was on an intersection. This happened around 8:30 in the morning near 166A Avenue and 196B Street. The driver of the recycling truck remained at the scene, while RCMP say that impairment was not believed to be a factor. Just over the past 3 years, the world has changed in many uncertain ways. One of the changes is the number of students that have come to Canada to learn English. Our reporter Chris Koo has more on the story.
Food inflation, Russian-Ukraine war, climate changes, and the pandemic all have enormously contributed to temporary or permanent changes in Canada. But what specifically has changed? According to Laura Uribe, who's a student services and accommodation manager at LSI English Language School in Vancouver, the number of students coming from Europe decreased significantly over the past 2 years.
So this summer, for example, we had like a lower number of students from Europe because, how I mentioned, the flight prices increased a lot. So I think the students from Europe, they prefer to go to Great Britain,
Travel app Hopper attributes the rising cost of flight tickets to inflation, explaining that airlines will be pressured to maintain higher airfares to compensate for the higher operational costs, such as jet fuel cost, while they also say surging demand for travel post-pandemic still has a huge impact on the rising price of tickets. Chris Koo, 1680, The Crow.
And I'm joined with Chris over the phone. So Chris, why is the number of students coming from Europe to study in English in Canada decreased?
Hi, Anthony. So there are multiple reasons why. First could be that inflation continues to drive costs up across the travel industry and will likely result in elevated prices for airfare and hotels even well into 2023. And the second reason could be due to the war between Russia and Ukraine.
Right. And Chris, have there been any changes to the language schools in Vancouver?
Yeah, so according to the manager of LSI English Language School, the curriculum still remained the same, but there are increase of students coming from Asia, specifically Japan. Also, they added more classes that involve physical activities post-pandemic, with activities such as carving pumpkins or simply dining out together, all to enhance the Canadian culture experience to students.
Thank you so much, Chris.
Thank you.
The BC government is committing $7.5 million to help stabilize physician care in emergency rooms in the province's interior. This comes after several emergency rooms in Merritt, Oliver, and Salmon Arm have been shortened hours and unexpected service interruptions due to staffing shortages. The province says in a statement the development of a new compensation model will help recruit more physicians in rural communities. They will help compensate them for their time spent at the hospital caring for patients with complex and time-intensive needs. Health Minister Adrian Dix says the investment will help ensure patients have stable access to emergency care, but adds more work needs to be done to avoid further service interruptions. An environmental group is in federal court in Vancouver challenging what it describes as Ottawa's failure to protect the endangered northern spotted owl. The Wilderness Committee, represented by environmental law charity EcoJustice, says there was a delay of 8 months recommending an emergency order to Cabinet that would have protected the owl in BC's Fraser Canyon. Wilderness Committee campaign director Torrance Cost says the group is asking the court to review the delay.
An emergency is an emergency, and, this isn't a challenge to federalism or anything like that. It's just an argument that in dire examples, and there's no argument that this isn't that, the federal government has a responsibility to step in a timely fashion.
There is only one known wild-born spotted owl left in the Fraser Canyon, while 2 more captive-bred animals were released earlier this year in the area. A Vancouver cabaret group is back this October with a Halloween tradition. Our reporter Madison Buckingham spoke with the organization's artistic director to find out what new features guests can look out for this year.
The Dusty Flower Pot Cabaret is returning with their well-loved Parade of the Lost Souls. This year, the group has chosen the theme Everything Everywhere All at Parade. Artistic director Kat Singledane says her team is exploring audience interaction like never before.
Theme, we want people to really use their imaginations for whatever kind of amalgamation of worlds they want to create.
The parade will be choose your own adventure style, meaning several bands will begin at the Britannia Library before splitting up onto separate routes with different experiences for attendees to follow. Singledane also mentioned that the public is being welcomed to workshops for flash mobs that will be happening the same evening. Attendees are also invited to the after party, where they will have the chance to interact with performers and celebrate the show. Madison Buckingham, 1680 The Crow.
This afternoon, Green Team and Cycling come tea at BCIT celebrating Go Bike Week. Our reporter Ugiloy Suvanova found out what are the benefits of riding a bike.
There are many benefits of commuting to school and work by bike, such as environmental, physical, emotional, and mental. Lisa Watt, a member of Green Team and Cycling Hub at BCIT, says a big bonus of cycling is getting away from single occupancy vehicles.
Not that convenience. Crowded buses, waiting for schedules, missing connections, you avoid all that with cycling. So I can't say enough good things about that.
Go Bike Week is a great opportunity to encourage students to bike more. I'm Ugiloy Suvanova for 1680 The Crow.
BC residents are rallying today to protest continual delays that they say have hampered their ability to rebuild after a devastating wildfire tore through the village in June 2001. Mayor Denise O'Connor says costly archaeological work is the latest roadblock for residents, following debris cleanup, foundation and soil removals, and backfilling.
People that are still living out in rentals around that want to come home. And it's that people side of it that I think most residents feel has been totally neglected over the last 2.5 years.
A statement from AEW, which was contracted to do the archaeology work, says the assertion that archaeology has delayed recovery is a false narrative based on misinformation. It says that work has been done concurrently with recovery, remediation, and backfilling. Coming in from the east, Ontario's public elementary school teachers have voted 95% in favor of a strike. The Elementary Teachers Federation of Ontario has said that a strike mandate wouldn't necessarily mean teachers will walk off the job, but will add pressure on the government to reach a contract deal with the teachers at the bargaining table. Education Minister Stephen Lecce says it is disappointing that the elementary union won't agree to use binding arbitration to avoid strikes, like the Ontario Secondary School Teachers Federation has.
It begs the question fundamentally, if we can get an agreement with one of the largest unions for English public high school teachers, then why can't we get that agreement with English public elementary school teachers?
The Ontario English Catholic Teachers Association is also holding strike votes today and tomorrow. The United States has vetoed a United Nations resolution to condemn all violence against civilians in the Israel-Hamas war and to urge humanitarian aid to Palestinians in Gaza. They said it was too early to craft an appropriate response to the crisis. United Nations Security Council President Sergio Franca Denise announced the results of this vote.
The draft resolution has not been adopted owing to the negative vote of a permanent member of the Council.
The U.S. was the only member of the 15-nation Security Council to oppose the resolution. Russia and Britain abstained. Moving on to sports, the Canucks lost their first game of the year, putting them 2-1 on the season, ending their brief undefeated run. The Canucks visited Philadelphia yesterday and lost 0-2 against the Flyers, a result that should have been substantially higher if not for stellar goaltending performance from Thatcher Demko. Canucks coach Rick Tocchet spoke after the game describing struggling Canucks gameplay.
We just got some guys, they better pick it up. I mean, I saw a lot of, I don't like to use the word soft, but I didn't see guys competing.
The Canucks continue their road trip where they play the Lightning in Tampa Bay at 4 p.m. Canada coach Bev Priestman says she expects to dig into her roster for friendlies against Brazil later this month in Montreal and Halifax.
Yeah, absolutely. Across both games, I would expect to see more rotation, more faces, because we have to assess players now to be able to make them roster selections for the Olympic Games.
The Canada coach says she wants to see the talent at her disposal ahead of next summer's Paris Olympics. News out of the NFL. NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell has received his long-anticipated contract extension through March 2027. This includes clauses for extension or succession. He says he's honored to do the job.
Armando, you hit a point. If I was focusing on my legacy, I wouldn't be standing in front of you. I wouldn't have signed an extension. My job is to be commissioner of the National Football League and do the best I can. That's what I'm going to do. You guys can decide legacies later. That's not what I'm focused on. I'm focused on what we got to accomplish as a league.
More news coming out of the NFL. New York Jets quarterback Aaron Rodgers was recently on the Pat McAfee show on ESPN to discuss his recovery from Achilles tendon surgery. He attributes his faster than expected recovery to willpower. Coming out of baseball, we have baseball later today. It's the Houston Astros that take on the Rangers. The Astros are looking to bounce back 0-2 from the series, although they face an uphill battle if they lose today because there's been only one team in history that has come back 0-3 in the series, and that's the Boston Red Sox. You can catch that game at 5 p.m. And your weather, well, it's the same as it's been. Nothing but showers that will probably go early into the next morning. It's 13 degrees, and if you're out there, exercise some caution. And those were your news and sports updates for today. Tune in tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. with your host, Brooke Jensen. Our producer today was Grace McLeod. I'm Anthony Atanesov with 1680 The Crow. Drive safe out there.
Stay tuned for more on BCIT's 1680 The Crow.
Everything is changing to digital. Everything is online. People aren't just waiting for the 6 o'clock news anymore. People want their news right now. They want to be able to go onto their smartphone, onto the internet, and see the news that they want to see.
Vancouver is growing at, a really rapid rate, the Lower Mainland even, and with the tools that we're given here, we're able to cover all of that.
Welcome to BCIT Magazine. I'm Radhika Sikakane.
In the program, they really leave it up to you. I mean, the help is there when you need it, figuring out how to use the programs like Premiere, Audition, and figuring out how to use the cameras. But it's up to you to sort of experiment and figure out what you can do when you go out in the field.
They brought candles and flowers to remember the student who lost her life yesterday.
Theresa May says the international community condemns Moscow.
They really make sure that you know the basics and you are able to put out a quality product.
I'm Brady Tretnero.
And I'm Radhika Sikakane. Thank you for tuning in to BCIT Magazine.